Gather close, for the tale I am about to share is not one for the faint of heart. It is a story of great sorrow, of power corrupted, and of vengeance that knows no end. It is the story of a warrior who once fought for honor, yet became something far darker, something beyond the realm of mortal men. But his story is not one of simple evil. It is a tale of tragedy, of loss, and of a soul so consumed by grief and fury that it cannot be saved. So, if you are prepared to hear the story of Aatrox, know this. It is not just the story of a fallen warrior. It is the story of a being trapped in a never-ending cycle of torment, seeking redemption where there can be none. With that being said, here is his story.
I was born to a purpose. I was born to defend Shurima. We were the mightiest empire the world had ever known. The gods themselves watched over us. How could we not be invincible? How could we not be the shining light in a world full of darkness? I remember the day I first wielded my blade. It was hot, hotter than anything I had ever felt before. The sun blaze that infused it was like an extension of my own soul. With that blade, I felt as though I could cleave through mountains, scatter entire armies with the sweep of my hand. I was unstoppable, and the gods, they smiled upon us. The sun burned bright, and their blessings poured down upon me, upon my brothers. We fought side by side, and I led them with pride. Each victory felt like a step closer to some greater purpose. But there's always a turning point, a moment when everything changes and you realize the truth, even if you don't want to admit it.
In the distant past, Aatrox was not the bloodthirsty Darkin Blade that the world knows now. He was a proud warrior in the great and mighty empire of Shurima, a champion among his people. Aatrox was one of the greatest of the Ascended, immortal warriors, chosen by the gods themselves to protect and lead their people. His blade, forged from the heart of the sun itself, shone like the very rays of daylight. He was a symbol of Shurima's power, their glory, and their invincibility. Aatrox fought with honor, with purpose. His strength was unmatched, and his presence on the battlefield was enough to inspire fear in the hearts of enemies and reverence in the hearts of his allies. He was more than a warrior. He was a protector, the last line of defense between his people and the forces of chaos. The gods had granted him his power, and for that he was devoted to them. But, as with all things, that devotion was tested. The moment of truth came when the very gods who had granted Aatrox and his brothers their immortality began to change. The same gods who had created the Ascended now feared the power they had set loose. They had seen the strength of their creations grow beyond what they had intended. Aatrox and his brothers, mighty as they were, had become a threat in their eyes. They feared that their creations, once tools to maintain peace, would become the very thing that could bring down the empire they had worked so hard to build. In the dead of night, the gods struck. Aatrox and the other Ascended were betrayed, cast down, weakened, and cursed. The gods shattered their bond to their true form, binding their souls to their weapons, turning their once proud warriors into hollow, rage-fueled beings, forever, cursed to live in torment. Aatrox was one of the last to fall.
I remember the betrayal as though it were just yesterday. The very air grew cold, and the ground trembled beneath my feet. The gods, they turned their backs on us. They feared what we had become, what they had made us. Aatrox they called, their voices reverberating through the heavens. You are no longer needed. You are no longer worthy of the power we granted you. I couldn't believe it. How could they do this to us? To me. I had fought for them, bled for them. We had given everything to build this empire, and this is how they repay us. The pain, the agony was unbearable. My body twisted and shifted. The sunblade I had wielded with honor became an instrument of my torment. I could feel my soul being ripped from my body, bound to that blade. My brothers fell around me, their forms dissolving into dark, twisted versions of themselves, the curse taking hold of them too. No, no, I cried out, but it was futile. They bound us, trapped us in these forms, these weapons. I was no longer Aatrox, the protector. I was a tool of destruction, a hollow vessel filled with rage, and there was nothing I could do to stop it.
The curse was not an easy one to bear. Aatrox, now bound to the blade, wandered the world for millennia, consumed by rage and anguish. He fought not for a cause, but because it was all he knew. His once immense power now served only to bring ruin and destruction. The land trembled in his wake. But even as he shattered the world around him, a small part of him clung to the memory of who he had once been. The noble warrior, the protector. But that part of him grew weaker with each passing century. Aatrox's hatred turned inward. He could no longer remember what it felt like to be human, to be whole. All that remained was the bitter, relentless thirst for vengeance. Vengeance not just against the gods, but against everything that had taken his humanity from him.
I am not who I once was. The gods took that from me. They took everything. I am Aatrox, the Darkin Blade, and I am vengeance incarnate. The gods thought they could break me, control me, but they were wrong. I will destroy everything they created. I will leave nothing standing. I was born to fight. I tell myself I was born to conquer. I have wandered this earth for centuries, my rage never cooling. It is all-consuming. Every battle I fight, I feel the blade growing heavier. Every death I cause, I feel emptier. But there is no escape. I can't stop. I can't break free. I am bound to this curse, and it is my fate to destroy everything I touch. This is your destiny. The blade whispers to me. You were made for this. You were made to be a god of war. I don't believe it. Not anymore. But the voice never stops. It never gives me peace.
It was during this endless, unrelenting cycle of destruction that Aatrox encountered Yasuo, a warrior driven by his own thirst for vengeance. Yasuo was young, but his rage was as fierce as Aatrox's own had once been. The two fought in an epic clash, their blades ringing out across the battlefield as they exchanged strikes with deadly precision. But Aatrox saw something in Yasuo, a glimmer of the warrior he had once been, a moment of clarity, a fleeting bitter taste of what might have been had things gone differently.
Yet he, mortal, yet he fought with such fury, such conviction. I could see it in his eyes. He was like I was, driven by vengeance, by a desire to right some wrong. I almost felt pity for him. You're not strong enough, I warned him as our blades met again. You can't defeat me. You can't defeat this curse. You will never find what you're looking for. But he pressed on. Foolish boy, he fought with all his might, yet I could see the same desperation in him that had once burned in me, and in the end, he fell. His body crumpled beneath my blade, but the echo of his fire remained in my mind. Why do we fight? I whispered to the wind, gazing at his broken form. What is the point of all this destruction?
And so Aatrox remains, trapped in the prison of his curse. He is no longer the warrior he once was, no longer the champion of Shurima. His power, once a symbol of hope, is now a weapon of ruin. And yet, as he wanders the world, laying waste, to all in his path there lingers the faintest glimmer of a question, one he may never truly answer. Was there ever a way back? Was there a part of Aatrox that could be saved, even now? For the Darkin Blade, the answer remains elusive.